All right, it's a lovely afternoon at FedEx Field in Landover, Maryland, as the Eagles are on the road preparing to take on Washington, another division game. Another must-win game for the Eagles on the line in the NFC East. Thank you for joining us on the Kickoff Show presented by Axalta. Amy Campbell, Fran Duffy, as always, the Eagles on the road ready to take on a Washington opponent that's 3-10, but this team has won 2 of the last 3. We are going to send you back out to Landover to FedEx Field to watch the Birds as they are preparing for this matchup. And tied atop the NFC East. And Fran, look, we talked about Washington won 2 of the last 3, but since the Eagles last saw this team, different quarterback in Dwayne Haskins, different coach as they made a coaching change halfway through the season. What are your initial thoughts on that?
Well, a lot of big things that are different over on the Washington side. Obviously, on the Eagles side, we still have Carson Wentz, and you still have Miles Sanders and some of the playmakers that we saw back in week 1. But when you look at this Washington team, the biggest difference is going to be Dwayne Haskins. And we're going to talk a little bit about how the Eagles are going to try and attack him. But ultimately, this is going to be an Eagles team that has to be able to win one-on-one matchups offensively and then defensively get after the rookie quarterback. Yeah,
and look, we talked, Riley McLeod earlier this week said, hey, we want to create some indecision with every quarterback, but especially with a rookie quarterback, some opportunity there as well. And look, this offensive line hasn't done a great job protecting Dwayne Haskins, and they're going to be without another one of their top linemen today. What kind of opportunity is there for this defensive front here?
Oh, there's absolutely big matchups that they're going to be able to win on both sides. I think when you look at this Washington offensive line, they're missing Brandon Scherf. You're already down Trent Williams, so you know that he's not going to be there and on the roster, on the field today for this team. So when you're Fletcher Cox, Brandon Graham, the rest of this Eagles defensive line, you've got to be licking your chops and getting ready to get after this rookie quarterback. Not have to rely on the blitz. Sure, Jim Schwartz will bring extra pressure in this game, but you got to think that defensive line is excited here for this matchup.
Well, and let's talk a little bit more about this Eagles offense here, because as we are seeing these tight ends warming up, look, Doug Peterson mentioned earlier this week when he was asked only 3 wide receivers available to you at this point. And he said, look, I look at it as 9 playmakers. We have guys who can mix and match, whether it's the running backs like Miles Sanders, Boston Scott, who can get involved in the passing game. But let's talk about those 3 receivers here. J.J. Arcega-Whiteside, Greg Ward, and Robert Davis promoted from the practice squad this week. This is going to be a very different looking Eagles offense than we saw last time these 2 teams matched up.
Yeah, and when you go back to last week's game and you got to see, a little bit of all these guys, obviously the new man here is going to be Robert Davis, who was actually drafted by Washington a couple of years ago out of Georgia State, and he was a little bit raw coming out. This is a height, weight, speed guy, though. He's a big-bodied kid who can run downfield and go up and attack the football. I can't wait to see how he's able to perform here today on limited reps here with the starting group. But when you look at it, it's still going to be about this guy, number 86. It's still going to be about Zach Ertz. You know that this passing game funnels through the tight end position right now, the way that the roster is constructed. Those 2 guys can be a big part of this passing attack.
All right, and there's Davis catching some passes now in warm-ups. Let's take a look at the offensive starters. We know that it all comes down to Carson Wentz, who many said had his best game of his career last week against the Giants. A come-from-behind overtime win, the way he put this team on his back with so many guys out with injuries. What kind of a matchup do you see for him this week, and just the way that confidence could carry over?
Yeah, I mean, that's what you're looking for, is some of those plays where, we saw the young guys coming through and making some big plays for this team, that Carson can now parlay that and say, you know what, these guys can go make plays for that. They can go make some tough catches. Now I'm going to pull the trigger a little bit earlier than maybe I would have 3-4 weeks ago on some of these unproven guys, and that's something that you're hoping that they can build off of with last week's performance.
Well, yeah, and look, you're going to be without Alshon Jeffrey for the rest of the season. He's on IR with that foot injury. Nelson Aguilar out again today. So a very different receiving core. And, of course, the last time these teams matched up was really the only full game that Deshaun Jackson played. Very different receiving core there, but it seems like they already have that chemistry, and especially with what all these guys went through last week together, they can build on that as well this week.
Yeah, absolutely. And I think when you look at this is obviously it's going to be Carson's show. They're going to try and run the football. Jordan Howard's still not in the lineup. You can run against this Washington defensive front despite some of the talent they have on that front 3. It's not as strong, as stout as last week's group in New York, but ultimately this is going to be Carson Wentz's operation. Even though the receivers are not household names, I can't wait to see how number 11 performs uniforms here today.
Yeah, absolutely. All right, let's switch to the defense and take a look at the defensive starters here for the Eagles. Derek Barnett continues to be out again, but Kamu Grugier-Hill back in the lineup. When you look at this defense, what kind of matchups do you like here?
Well, they're going to be down, one of their big offensive linemen in Brandon Scherf. We talked about that. So I think the matchup you really like is Fletcher Cox going up against Chase Roulier, the center. They've got a rookie right guard now in Wes Martin, a 4th-round pick out of Indiana. You'll love that matchup here on the offensive line for the Eagles. And then I think in the secondary, it's going to be all about these guys trying to stop Terry McLaurin. Last week we talked about the rookie Darius Slayton. The week before, another former 1st-round pick in Devontae Parker. So when you look at this matchup here, it's going to be all about stopping the rookie on the other side. That's Terry McLaurin, number 17. He torched the Eagles secondary in the first half back in week 1. They cannot let him beat them here today because you don't have Deshaun Jackson. Deshaun Jackson's not on the field today to be able to score those 2 quick score touchdowns that we saw in the second half back in week 1. You can't be chasing points early on. The Eagles have to stop Terry McLaurin in this game from beating them down the field.
Well, yeah, and that game, the first game of the season, Terry McLaurin was a rookie, relatively unknown, and that was a really big welcome to the NFL moment for him when he torched the Eagles in that game, like you said. And playing now with Dwayne Haskins, who is his college quarterback, those two were one of the most productive quarterback-receiver tandems at the college level. And now, as Haskins is trying to get his feet wet, he has probably his favorite weapon on his NFL team. Going to be one of those ways that they were able to set him up for a little bit of success there.
Yeah, I think the big thing in terms of getting after Dwayne Haskins is going to be all about pressure. When you watch him, most rookie quarterbacks, if you can get pressure in their face, they'll drop their eyes, they may run around and try and take some sacks. Dwayne Haskins is that, but I think to an even bigger extent. I think when you look at him, if you can get opposing color into his face, you get those Eagles white jerseys into his face, I think he starts to question some things. He'll drop his eyes, he'll run around and not only take some sacks, but also throw some to these guys that you're seeing on your screen right now in the Eagles secondary. So to me, whether it's with the front four or with the pressure or with the blitz, I think you have to be able to pressure Dwayne Haskins, make him question what he's seeing, and try and see if he can throw a couple to you on defense.
Well, and look, he's going to, of course, want to rely on his run game a little bit. It's just going to be a very different run game than the Eagles saw week 1 when it was Darius Geis and Chris Thompson. Then Geis out with an injury, done for the season. But Adrian Peterson, who didn't play in that first game, the ageless wonder. I know you're going to break down that matchup a little bit more later, but just kind of on the surface, what kind of challenge is that going to provide for this Eagles defense?
He is still a downhill, physical, powerful runner who can run through contact. So I think when you look at Adrian Peterson, it's going to be all about getting him to the ground. This is not some of the smaller backs that the Eagles have seen over the last few weeks. It's kind of similar to Saquon Barkley last week, where it's going to take more than just one guy to be able to get him down. Adrian Peterson's still very tough to bring to the ground. So I think when you look at this Eagles defense, it's going to be about rallying to the football, everyone doing their job in the run fit.
I love Jalen Mills like, y'all, I'm okay. I got this bionic
arm,
elbow brace. I'm good to go. I'm excited to see his matchup today, really the entire secondary against the Washington Playmakers. The other matchup that I do want to mention that is not happening today for the first time in a long time is Lane Johnson and Ryan Kerrigan. Both of those guys are out. Lane, again, dealing with that ankle injury. But I do think it's interesting that his nemesis also isn't going to show up without the rivalry. It's like that good rivalry with the respect between the two of them, and you can't have one without the other, apparently.
Some would say that there's like some kismet there.
Some would say that, yeah, absolutely. So Eagles offensive line going to be without Lane Johnson, but of course the defensive line for Washington going to be missing one of their top playmakers as well. How do you think about the way this offensive line has been able to kind of have guys step in the absence of Lane?
Yeah, I think that's one of the values of having a guy like Halapoulivaati Vaitai on the roster is that, the Eagles won a Super Bowl with him at left tackle.
So versatile.
He's their backup left tackle. Obviously, you have Andre Dillard there, who's got that ability to do that as well and do that as a rookie. But you've got him as your backup right tackle and your backup guard as well, because when Brandon Brooks goes down, it's Big V that slides in there until he has to slide out to right tackle, and then they can insert Matt Pryor. But he is a backup at 3 different positions. That is invaluable in the NFL. So having a player like that, I think, is so big for this Eagles offense. And, they're able to just kind of plug him in and just keep going. Sure, it's not the same kind of quality that you get from Lane Johnson and Brandon Brooks on that right side. But teams in the NFL, I'll tell you what, do a lot worse than what the Eagles can do with Big V there at right tackle.
Absolutely, and we were watching some of those linemen warming up. Nate Herbig, for the first time, he will be active today as well. All right, we're going to go back to FedEx Field, check in with the Eagles insider, Dave Spadaro. Dave, last year I was on the road with you when we were at Washington. We did our shot facing the crowd because the Eagles fans were out in full force. It's not that far of a road trip for the fans who travel so well. What is the atmosphere like? How many Eagles fans are you expecting today?
Yeah, Amy, it is, again, an Eagles home game, just like in Miami, probably just like it'll be in New York in a couple of weeks. It is all green here, and it's so fun. I mean, I've heard so many stories of fans coming down 95 and buying front row tickets for like 20 bucks. That's how down the Redskins fans are on their Washington Redskins team. So this is very much a pro-Eagles environment today. And let's hope the Eagles start fast because they'll really get this stadium rocking.
Well, it's certainly going to be one of the biggest storylines to watch in this game, Dave. But it's not your big storyline. What is your big storyline to watch here today?
Well, again, the Eagles with another rash of injuries. No Derek Barnett today. Jordan Howard still out. Lane Johnson out. Alshon Jeffrey on IR. The team that the Eagles began the season with, totally different now as the Eagles get ready for game number 14. So my storyline is, how does this team down the stretch and really must-win games here and something they got to create some momentum? How are they going to do that with so many backups on the field? We saw it in 2017 at 5 positions. We've seen it in 2019 at every single position on the roster. Every position has been affected by injuries. Quarterback with Nate Sudfeld, the tight ends, I mean, everywhere up and down the line. So how do the Eagles get things right and get hot at the exact needed time?
Well, and Dave, you talked about that with Doug Peterson earlier this week, and he kind of equated the injuries at the receiver position to last year's injuries in the secondary. And, of course, that experience for those young guys has really benefited the Eagles this year. Give me your key to the game for this one.
You know, we've talked about the offense. I know you guys are talking a lot about it. How do they manufacture points? I think the Eagles really, on the outside, they've got to win some one-on-one matchups. The wide receivers who are very inexperienced, Arcega-Whiteside and Ward and Davis, against Washington's cornerbacks. Washington won't have Quentin Dunbar, their best cornerback, so that's a big plus for the Eagles. But to me, they've got to win some battles. They've got to give Carson some windows through which to throw and make some big plays. Eagles had, I believe it was 5 plus 20 plays in the pass game last week, and each of those big plays came on drives on which the Eagles scored points. You must have chunk plays to score in the NFL. So to do that today, got to win some one-on-one battles at wide receiver.
All right, Dave, have a fun time there in Landover. We will catch up with you after the game.
Beautiful day. It's an awesome atmosphere down here.
It looks amazing. We'll catch up with you. Yeah, you know, the past couple of weeks, it hasn't been great weather, but today I'm a little bit jealous. Well, I was very jealous when they were in Miami as well, but I'm a little bit jealous today. That looks like a gorgeous, cool weather football game.
I'm sure we'll probably hear from Merrill Reese and Mike Quick about the weather.
Chances are Merrill will mention the weather. All right, what about your key to the game?
All right, so my key, and I think, look, when you have this Eagles offense, and if chances are they're not going to put up 35, 40 points. So defensively, they have to be able to stop the run. This is a running team. First down, second down. They want to get Adrian Peterson downhill, but they have a very specific kind of run scheme. It is a lot of gap schemes. This isn't a zone run team where you're going to try and get the offensive line on the move left and right with some quick little zone steps. You're going to see power with pulling guards from the backside. You're going to see counter with 2 pullers and a little bit of a counter step from the back in the backfield. You're going to see some sweeps. All of these runs are designed to get the running back downhill. Maybe get him a little bit to the perimeter, but get him downhill. This Eagles defense, we've talked about it, is a downhill defense, a one-gap scheme where everybody in the front 7, they've got their gap, they're going to get downhill. So they might think pre-snap, hey, we've got numbers. It's 3 versus 3, but when you have those pullers coming in, now all of a sudden it's 5 on 3 on the left side here. So it's so important for the Eagles defense at the second level. Those linebackers and safeties, they've got to scrape over the top and make sure that the numbers maintain in the Eagles' advantage. You have to maintain gap integrity. You've got to keep the run fits really, really sound. All of those buzzwords we hear all the time about good team run defense, they're going to come into play here today because I'm telling you, first down, second down, Washington's going to look to run the football with Adrian Peterson. They want to take as much off the plate of Dwayne Haskins as possible. In this game, more than most, it's going to be all about stopping the run.
I love it. Fran Duffy making the people smarter, as always, with that animation. Great stuff. Thanks. Ben Fennell?
Yes,
well? Yeah,
absolutely.
awesome. All right, for my key, I'm going with kind of similar, but the other component of the offense, the passing game. The Eagles secondary needs to shut down Washington's playmakers. This was what really gave them fits the first time these teams matched up, and it was Terry McLaurin, 125 yards in his debut in the NFL against the Eagles secondary. Now he's got his college quarterback, Dwayne Haskins, throwing to him. These two have so much chemistry and confidence together, but it wasn't just McLaurin who was successful against the Eagles secondary. It was their entire team. 370 passing yards to only 28 rushing yards, 3 touchdowns to 3 different receivers as well. So this Eagles secondary needs to shut down the perimeter and stop the big plays from happening on the outside.
And a lot of that was off play action back in week 1. So run game turning into success in the passing game. That's why stopping the run is going to be so important.
Amy and Fran, perfect combo for keys to the game. We've got the whole offense covered. All right, we are going to go back to Landover and check in with Merrill and Mike for some players to watch. What you got for us, Merrill?
Thanks, Amy. It is a beautiful day here in Landover, Maryland. The sun is shining, the temperature about 50. Perfect conditions for the Eagles to nail down a most important win. Mr. Quick, who are you watching today?
So last week I talked about watching Ronald Darby. You know what? I'm going the same way again this week. Ronald Darby, number 21, I'll keep my eyes on him because the Redskins are going to try and get plays down the field. Terry McLaurin burnt this Eagles defense in that first matchup. They will try and do the same thing here this afternoon.
Well, I'm going to watch a trio of wide receivers for the Eagles. J.J. Arcega-Whiteside is the veteran. He's had the most action of any of the 3. The others are Greg Ward, who's been playing well lately. And then today, for his debut as an Eagle, it is Rob Davis, a draft choice a couple of years back of the Washington Redskins. So keep your eye on these young wide receivers and see if they can be difference makers. Back to you, Amy.
Great stuff as always, Merrill. And Fran, I feel like Merrill's the one person I'm going to let get away with. I asked for a player to watch, and he's going to give me 3, but good points by him as well.
I'm calling you on that because I guarantee you if Mike was the one that gave you 3, you would have said the same thing.
Oh my gosh, you're not wrong. I just love them both so much. They're the best, and I love hearing what they have to say every week. All right, we're going to take a quick break, but when we come back, Mike is one-on-one with Boston Scott, who had a breakout game last week for the Eagles. He's one-on-one in the Ponla Hockey interview. If you are watching us on social media, head on over to the Eagles app or PhiladelphiaEagles.com for the rest of the show. We will see you in a minute.